Hey, my homies, it's your homegirl Ronnika with another episode of the Please Do Tell podcast. Welcome back. Hopefully, you watched the latest episode, which was 2 weeks ago. Hopefully, you watched that so you're able to settle into this part two of my road trip through, I'm going to say, down in the Delta of Arkansas and the bayous of Louisiana. Before I get started, so my last episode, I talked about being excited about no longer being on high blood pressure medication, but I did not tell you all the story behind the tambourine. Growing up, I would, well, not really in my home church, but when we would go have church with my grandmother in Decatur, Michigan, this was a church that I wasn't really used to, a church that is a Kojic church. I grew up Baptist. There are definitely similarities and a lot of differences. But there was one thing that when I would always go to her church, I would look for the tambourine. I always wanted to play the tambourine. And for some strange reason, every time I would go visit that church, there would be maybe a couple of tambourines per pew. And there was a lot of kids that went there. A lot of kids that every Sunday they knew how to play the tambourine. So when it was my turn to get the tambourine, praise and worship would be over. I mean, it never failed. Every time my hands would be like this, like, yes, it's finally my turn. Give me the tambourine. And then an elder would get up and say, oh, praise the Lord, saints. And I'm just like, every time. So once I got good and grown, I had this conversation with her. And I said, do you know why I'm so obsessed with the tambourine? Like, why I really wanted to be. I said, there's a whole thing on social media about tambourine ministry. There's people that have been playing for years, and I've been trying to get my hands on one for years. And she said, you don't know how to play the tambourine? No, I said, but I've always wanted to learn. And she said, well, why didn't you say anything? Did you not see me crying out in that pew? I would have a fit. One time I got in trouble. That I was arguing with another kid. That's why I was arguing. It's because it was never my turn for the tambourine. She said, Nika, there's been a tambourine in this house all your life. See what happens when you don't speak up? There's been a tambourine here. There's been a tambourine here all my life. She said, yeah, I just never knew that you were really into it like that. She said, you always gravitated towards the piano. Yeah, but so no, what? I just sat there. I mean, and she pulled one out and she got to work on that tambourine, and I just sat there like, wow. So in my adult life, since matter of fact, I think I've owned a tambourine of my own for about 10 years now. This is my newest one, but I had a traditional one that you would see in the church. I had one. I still have it. It's usually a prop in meetings that I'm in. I've even taken it to a few weddings. Shout out to Tahira for even requesting that I bring the tambourine to her wedding, and we definitely played it during her reception. It was great. But I needed to tell you all the story of why I'm obsessed with the tambourine. I think I've just been initiated again into the tambourine ministry because sometimes I had to take a step back. But people know me for the nail polish and the tambourine. So you're getting a whole lot of me through this podcast. So let's go back to my Retracing Their Steps road trip story time. So last time I told you about driving down the Delta of Arkansas, and my final stop was getting to the hotel in Little Rock, having some of the best Chipotle of my life. Shout out to the gentleman that made my bowl that night. Salad. It was so good. It was even distribution of the meat. The veggies were fresh. It was, I mean, I woke up the next day like, that was a good Chipotle experience. So shout out to y'all. Shout out to y'all. But I wake up around 6, so I didn't have that much sleep because I was so excited about what I was going to be experiencing that day. I wake up and I said, you know what? I need to lay back down because I haven't had enough rest. Then I roll over to my phone ringing. My sister, the same one that called during the last episode. And I told y'all that I share my location. The first thing she says, you haven't moved. Hello and good morning. You haven't moved. Your location hasn't changed. So why haven't you moved? Chop, chop. You got to get out there. I said, did you ask me if I've had enough rest? I was trying to get enough sleep, but I guess I better get up now because I got to get on this road, eh? Oh, you were trying to get some more rest? I said, didn't I just say, okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to get dressed. It's okay. Thank you. Thank you for the phone call. I'm just excited too. I said, okay, thank you. I'll talk to you while I'm out there. But I see that sharing my location with you is kind of dangerous. So just know that you only have it until the end of the day. Thanks, and talk to you later. So I also reach out to my friends to remind them like, hey, don't forget to record me while I'm on the road because now I'm crossing state lines and this should be cool. So my next stop was the location of Bastrop, Louisiana. As doing my research, I realized that my grandmother had traveled to Bastrop to complete her schooling. And just from the place of Tiller, Arkansas to Bastrop, Louisiana, it's about 90 minutes. From the census records and just other information, she had an older sister that was living in Louisiana at the time. And even a part of the census, my grandmother's listed as an occupant of her home. And I thought to myself, my grandmother was she had to have been, since we're in Women's History Month, let me just remind you. All of this is going on during Women's History Month. She made the decision that she was going to leave home, go get training, go to high school, graduate as the first in her family. And I thought, wow. Because just even being around Tiller, like I wonder, like, where did she go to school? Like, she couldn't have went to school here. But no, she didn't. She left home and she went to live with her sister so she could have a better future for herself. Like, she understood that. And we're talking about in the 30s. In the South. Education was important for her. I have her graduation photo. I even have the photo of her and her graduating class, which was probably a small class of about 30 people. So me just riding down the same highway that I was taking to get to Dermot, but I think I went on another state road, of course, to get to Louisiana. And I thought, 90 minutes from home for school. That's one thing. I pull into Bastrop, Louisiana. First of all, I was mad because on that side of the state or even that state road, no one thought to put up a welcome to Louisiana sign. When I tell you I'm riding and I'm waiting for the welcome Louisiana sign, nothing. It was only popping up on my GPS. That's how I knew that I was in Louisiana, because it'll say, oh, you're 3 miles, turn right. I said, well, I got to be in Louisiana because I was waiting for the sign. Like anytime I do a road trip, I'm always, even if I'm just going to Indiana, I'm looking for the welcome to Indiana sign. I'm looking for those signs that say I'm crossing into another state. Excuse me. I'm pulling in to Louisiana, and it says turn right, and I'm going through this neighborhood, and I said, surely the high school ain't over in here. It's not over here. It's not. I'm going further down the road, and then there it is, Baster Pie. And I thought, I've arrived. Like I didn't even need the GPS to tell me. I've arrived. I go to the front of the building, and then I go to the back of the building, and I'm sitting in the parking lot for a while because I'm actually looking for my grandmother's graduation photos. I'm like, okay, I want to know where I'm supposed to be standing in these photos. I mean, I'm searching. Clearly, I didn't favorite it in my phone, which I had to get over that. But I had some idea. Like I said, if I see it, I'll know. There was a family that came into the parking lot. They stopped. I'm sure they were looking like, okay, who is this person just sitting off in this school parking lot by themselves? Are they lost? What are they doing? Hopefully they're not drinking or doing anything illegal on school property. Because I'd be thinking the same thing, like, what you need? What you doing? Out of state plates? What you doing? So looks like the wife and little kids are getting out. They're like playing in one corner of the parking lot. And there's a gentleman on the passenger side and a younger girl in the driver's seat. So when I pull off and start heading their way, they pull off and start heading my way. I said, oh, good. Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask them a couple questions. So I said, hey, how you doing? I just have a question for you. Is this the same high school that's been around since the 1920s? And he said, yeah, that's the only one we have. I said, this is the only one? He was like, yep. He said, now all of this back here is new, but that's still the original building. Perfect. What was also really sweet about that encounter is that gentleman was teaching his daughter how to drive. So that was even a flashback for myself where I learned how to drive with my dad in the parking lot of LMC, Lake Michigan College. And so that was really cute to see. But the gentleman said, yeah, this is the high school. I said, okay, I think I'm going to go around in the front and get my photos. But, thank you so much. Go around to the front. And I'm looking. I was like, okay, yes, I remember these arches. Yep, I remember. Okay, yeah, this looks familiar. And I'm getting out. I'm taking photos. And then and I'm literally like in the middle of a neighborhood. It really felt like this is really the neighborhood school. It really gave me the feelings of Ben Harbor High. It did. It just did. Then I hear someone marching up. What you doing? I said, okay. All right. Okay. All right. You taking pictures of Bastrop High? Why are you doing that? And I turned around and I said, Lord, what's protect my peace? Like what's about to happen? And I heard this gentleman when I was taking photos earlier on the other side of the building. I could hear him talking loud and like carrying on with someone at one of the houses down the street. And he walks over and he said, why you want to take pictures of Bastrop High? And I said, there's so much history here, like that's attached to my family. And then he says to me, well, who are your people? all I could do was laugh because, especially in the Black community, that's how we identify each other. Who are your people? And I laughed, and he said, "What's your family's last name?" I said, "I totally understand what you're saying, sir. I know what you meant. I just laughed because this is really universal for us. This is what we do, no matter what." And I said, "Oh, last name." I said, "You probably don't know the family because this is back in the 30s." He said, "Girl, what's the name?" I said, "Burns." And he said, he looked. He said, "Burns or Barnes?" I said, "Burns, Burns." And he said, "Oh, I was finna get excited because I'm a Barnes." Then he pulls out his wallet, shows me his license. But before that, he pulled a bottle out of his like a 40 ounce out of his pants pocket, and I'm just like, okay, all right, okay. He asked for a hug, and I told him no. I was like, just with COVID and everything, I just got over it. Like, I'm just really, I'm liking the distance that we have right now. And he laughed about that. And so when he showed me his license, he was like, "Here, touch it for good luck." And I said, "Mr. Barnes, you are quite the character." He said, "So you take photos and you do video?" He said, "Because I can give you a show." I said, "I bet you could. I bet you could." He said, "So I'm gonna have to call on you when it's time for me to be out there and entertain, and you're gonna have to come and take my photos." I said, "Okay." And then he said, "Why you acting standoffish?" I said, "No, I'm fine. I'm just, I'm always aware of my surroundings." And he said to me, "If you got a guy with you, you ain't got to worry about nothing, because he gets there before you even get there, and he going to be with you wherever you go." I said, "Lord, you will show up in the most unique ways." And it came in the form of Mr. Barnes. But Mr. Barnes, just looking at his license photo and the gentleman that I was talking to that afternoon, it was I knew that God had been, and it still is, a part of his life, even for him to say that to me, but that he had lost his way, like most of us do, all of us do. And we can only hope that we find our way back to Christ. But when he said that to me, and then he said, "You be careful and you take care of yourself," and he turned around and walked away, and it seemed like within a minute he had just, like, I couldn't even see him anymore. And this is the same street that I came in on. That's how fast he was moving. That when I took a few more photos and I turned back around, Mr. Barnes was gone. I continued to take pictures on the grounds and even recorded some B-roll while I was out there. And I thought to myself, my grandmother, very compassionate, gentle. She had a very gentle spirit. She traveled away from home in order to educate herself. And maybe 5 years after that, she loses her mother and takes in her 3 youngest siblings. And all I could think about is just the continuous sacrifices that she made in order for family to always be together. She was really big on education. She celebrated it. She encouraged it. Literacy was really big for her. You could always catch her doing a word search or a crossword puzzle. Like those books were in stacks on the porch. That even I find myself, especially when I'm traveling or if I'm somewhere and I see like a word search, or if I'm going to an event and there's a word search, I'm like, ooh, word search. Like it's really nostalgic for me. But she always wanted you to, like, that mind needs to always be going. It needs to always be working. Just keep your mind active. She's a praying woman. I've stated before that her prayers I'm still being blessed by the prayers that she prayed in that living room, especially when she was extremely ill. She would be in a room full of people, and her head would be down, and she would be praying for all of us. So as I left, I wanted to go further that day, but my body was like, no, you'll be back this way soon. Because I wanted to travel a little bit further down in Louisiana where her oldest brother lived and died. The one that was actually a part of the name change that occurred. He was the oldest and the first child. Well, the oldest. And I'm looking forward to retracing those steps. But it's something about Louisiana whenever I go. It's always love. I'm always met with love. It's the people. It's the areas. It's just that trip, similar to the Alabama trip. This whole Retracing Their Steps experience is been life-changing for me. And I love how my friends and their parents and so many other people have been just like, well, tell me more about your journey. Like, even when I got home last week, I had dinner with my good girl, Julie. And I said, oh, what should I bring over? And she said, oh, no, maybe your notes, because I want to hear all about your stories from your travels this past week. Thank you for being a part of this journey with me. I want to make sure I don't leave anything out. If you ever have any questions for me, let me know. I'm going to have I've had that Kickstarter campaign in my tab open for weeks now. And I know before the end of this month that I have to, because I even said on previous episodes that, it should be up. And I was afraid to launch it, but it's like, no, don't even be afraid anymore. It's just put it out there and let people support you. So it was a 2.5 hour trip from Bay Street, Louisiana back to Little Rock to get me a couple hours of sleep before, because my plane, I think my flight was leaving at like 6:25 the next morning. And again, I could not turn my brain off from everything that I experienced the last 48 hours of being up and down the highway. And it was also a reminder to me, like, maybe you should break up these trips a little bit more, like, or give yourself a little bit more time and not try to cram everything in there or feeling like you're pressured. But I'm glad I listened to my body when I said, okay, maybe you just need to do just one stop. That's fine. But it's been great, and I'm looking forward to sharing more stops with you. Robbins, Illinois is another one. I can't wait to connect with my cousins and that are still there and talk about the summers of spending time in Robbins and as one of my cousins said, like, are you still in Alabama? Like, I want to go back with you when you go the next time. Like, my family is really getting excited about this whole project, and it's really bringing me a lot of joy. And the fact that we get to retrace our steps together. So, y'all, I'm going to wrap up this episode of the Please Do Tell podcast, because just know that there's more coming. So really be looking out for the Kickstarter, because we do have to get out there, and I'll be hopefully on the news saying like, hey, this Kickstarter is now live and please support it. And be sure to share with your friends. Like, there's no amount that's too small. I think you can only pledge, I think the smallest amount is $1 that you can pledge. But listen, I will celebrate every dollar that comes through that campaign, okay? And for those that have already supported thus far, I am grateful for your donations and your gifts. And you're able to see where all of that is going. And it's not over. So I am your homegirl, Ronnika, with the Please Do Tell podcast. Excuse me. I was like, where is it? With the Please Do Tell podcast. And we will see you next time for, more story time and more with your girl. Later, my homies.